Ambulance emergency. Is the patient breathing?
Yes, he is.
Is the patient awake?
Well, he was.
Okay, tell me exactly what's happened.
I've just stabbed my husband twice.
You've... Tell me again?
You heard, I've stabbed my husband twice.
Can I speak to him? Is he awake?
No, he's not really awake, mate. I think he's dying.
Okay, alright. We have got help being arranged, okay?
Yeah,
now...
you need to get the guys here now.
All
get
right.
the guys here now. The police to arrest me. And the EMS, I need the cops here now.
We've got help being arranged for you. They've been allocated to you, okay, but we need to help the patient now, okay? So lay him flat on his back, remove anything from under his head, do that now.
Open. Right, the front door's open,
right,
okay?
Go to the patient and do that now.
Go back up the pool. Hang on, wait a minute. Oh, I think I've killed him.
The family of an Essex father, stabbed to death by his wife as he slept, said they cannot understand why a trained nurse would have left her husband to die. Rebecca called the ambulance service at 2:12 a.m. on February 12 this year, reporting she had stabbed her husband twice. When police officers arrived at the couple's home in Rycroft, they found paramedics treating Mr. Searing in an upstairs bedroom, while Rebecca was downstairs in the living room. As officers spoke to and arrested Rebecca, she made a number of significant statements, seeming to admit she had attacked her husband, stating, "I can't believe I've just done this and I will go down for this." Mr. Searing was taken to hospital but, sadly, died about 3 hours later. Searing was found guilty by a jury at Chelmsford Crown Court in August of the murder of her husband and appeared at the same court for sentence. In a family victim impact statement, written by Karen Crocu and read to the court by prosecuting barrister Alan Compton QC, Paul Searing's loved ones described him as happy-go-lucky and football-mad, being a die-hard fan of Tottenham Hotspur. They said he was loving and affectionate with his family and never showed aggression. They said he was the most gentle, loyal and loving person. We never felt anything other than love and safety in his presence. Paul's relationship with Rebecca contributed to a rift between him and his sons. He had been working to rebuild that relationship, and this was cruelly ended by Rebecca. All we have been left with is "I can't remember." The 999 call played to the courtroom was chilling. We cannot understand why a trained and dedicated nurse would leave Paul to die. It's been hard to hear him be painted as an aggressive and violent drunk who would harm Rebecca when we only knew him as loving. She may have been a good nurse, but that doesn't make her a good person. In mitigation, Sasha Was QC said that she still loves him and that she herself is still unable to explain what happened during the early hours of that morning. She said she is a trained nurse and has worked all her life. Her occupation is to save lives and prevent suffering and not cause it. The evidence makes it plain that when she saw the wound she was completely traumatized and unable to function. Ms. Was told the court that it was clear Searing suffered violence at the hands of her husband, including a time where he was charged with kicking her, but she later withdrew her support for the prosecution because she didn't want to destroy her relationship and emphasized that Searing did live in fear. She added, "There are two sides to both people's character and Your Honor has to consider both sides when sentencing. Whatever good things that can be said about Paul Searing, and there are many, the reality was that he did use his strength against his weaker wife and she was in fear." Judge Christopher Morgan acknowledged that the relationship between Rebecca and Paul Searing had been complicated with acts of violence carried out against her, along with an act of violence against Paul when Rebecca Searing struck him with a pool cue. He accepted that she was a victim of domestic violence, however, he dismissed any notion that on the night in question Rebecca Searing had been under any threat. He said, "Even if there had been verbal abuse constantly from 2018 to you killing your husband, you weren't dependent on your husband and you could have left the relationship. But I accept that it's difficult when you claim you still love your husband and still attach yourself emotionally. Your husband came home shortly before 11 p.m. You assisted him up to bed. If he had threatened you at that stage when he was upstairs you could have left and sought help, but you didn't do so. You went upstairs shortly after 2:30 a.m. and you stabbed him." Judge Morgan gave Searing a minimum of 17 years in prison before being eligible for parole. Rest in peace Paul Searing and condolences to the family.